As we continue to cover the political fallout and ramifications of the brutal assassination of Charlie Kirk, this one is particularly stunning because it's a MAGA Republican congressman who is publicly threatening his own district, publicly holding it hostage, saying that he will work to defund it unless one person in his district is fired for exercising her free speech right to make really callous comments about Kirk's assassination. Talk about cutting your nose off to spite your face. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. I saw this and I was stunned. I'm like, of all the responses, this one, again, not necessarily the worst, but I guess in some ways it is. I've not seen something like this before. So this is Derrick Van Orden. This is what he publicly posted on social media. He says, I represent Ellsworth in Congress. It's a beautiful town full of wonderful people, except this one. I will be working to remove all federal funding, including grants and community-directed projects for the entire city of Ellsworth, unless this is rectified immediately. And it's in response to Libs of TikTok, who says, teacher at Ellsworth Elementary School District in Wisconsin, quote, he spewed hate. You can't be upset that he died. Imagine this person teaching your kids. So in response to this teacher expressing her opinion, no matter how callous you may find it, which is protected by the First Amendment of the Constitution, her representative, a guy who represents the entire town, is saying, hey, I'm going to cut funding from the entire town unless this is rectified immediately. He is holding his district hostage. He is holding a town in his district, to be more precise, hostage because of the actions of one person. Not even the actions, the words of one person that he doesn't like. That is shocking. Mehdi Hassan, friend of the show and progressive journalist, says, a Republican congressman bragging here that he will collectively punish his constituents in a town in his district in order to punish one single person for exercising her free speech rights under the First Amendment. I'm going to play another thing about Derrick Van Orden in just a second, but I'm curious. I want to read some responses to this. Let's gauge the real-time public reaction. Okay, says one Twitter user in response to Derrick Van Orden, which we actually covered this a long time ago. He responded, yes, to 17 million people just lost health care. 18 million kids just lost school meals. 3 million Americans just lost food assistance. He said yes in response to this and actually ended up having to publicly apologize. This you miserable old sack of shit. Wasn't Charlie a big component? I think they meant proponent of free speech. Look who's running the cancel culture now, you fraud. Libs of TikTok responds with thank you. So Libs of TikTok is thanking Van Orden for holding his district and his town responsible and threatening to punish them. Paraphrase, I will collectively punish a whole area for one person exercising free speech. Republicans don't conserve anything. They just stop progress. With very little to no due respect, your threat is preposterous. What happened to, quote, I may not like what she said, but I'll defend to the death her right to say it. Review the First Amendment. He pronounced and stood for the biblical values that made America great. If that steps on your toes, then you have a problem. So I'm not sure if that's in response to the person that Van Orden's responding to or to Van Orden himself. Of course, then you have some expressions of support. She has no business being around children of any age. Thank you. Is she not exercising her free speech right? And again, so it just goes on, like obviously mixed reviews here. Now, I also have footage in the immediate aftermath of Kirk's assassination. This is Van Orden himself wearing what looks like an Indiana Jones villain hat. Like I feel like he's the bad guy in the first or third Indiana Jones movie, blaming the press. It's the press's fault, Van Orden says, for Kirk's assassination.
Every one of you're complicit in the attempted assassination of Donald Trump twice. You bear, just be quiet. You are responsible for this because you are echoing the horrifically horrible political violent rhetoric that's being produced by the Democrat Party.
Yeah, so this guy is obviously frothing at the mouth. He can barely articulate a sentence. He's not good. Okay, it's not good. So let's read some commentary from a major publication in Wisconsin. After Charlie Kirk assassination, Wisconsin Representative Derrick Van Orden fans the flames. This is him, by the way. Fruitless thoughts and prayers, familiar calls for de-escalating toxic partisanship, promises to do something about teen mental health crises, violent video games, the epidemic of alienation and hopelessness. By now, we are all accustomed to the ritual reactions to the routine incidents of horrific gun violence that plague our country, like no other wealthy nation on earth, where firearms are the leading cause of death for children. But if the usual feckless responses to gun violence are maddening in a country that can't get its act together to pass even marginal common sense gun safety measures, the reaction of Wisconsin U.S. Representative Derrick Van Orden to the hideous assassination of right-wing provocateur Charlie Kirk this week was downright reprehensible. As soon as the news broke that Kirk was shot while on stage at the Utah Valley University, Van Orden began a stream of increasingly unhinged social media posts blaming Democrats and the media for the murder and declaring, quote, the gloves are off. Quote, the left-wing political violence must stop now. The left and their policies are leading America into civil war, and they want it, just like the Democrat Party wanted our first civil war. Contrast this with the statements from other Wisconsin politicians. It goes into how Democratic Senator Tammy Baldwin said there's no two ways about this. Political violence has no place in America. I'm keeping Charlie and his family in my thoughts in this truly horrifying moment. Another Wisconsin Republican, Tony Wyde, says, quote, there's absolutely zero place for political violence in our country. Democratic Wisconsin Senator Tony Evers says, violence against anyone because of their political beliefs is wrong. Violence against others is wrong. Violence is never the answer for resolving our differences or disagreements. Wisconsin joins in praying for Charlie Kirk and the Utah Valley community and first responders. None of these statements mollified Van Orden, who told reporters at the U.S. Capitol, every one of you is responsible for Kirk's death. We're posting a news clip of Democratic Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, who called for the nation to de-escalate political violence and come together. Van Orden wrote, too late, you have sown the wind. Quote, I'm not sure they understand what they have done, Van Orden ranted. Quote, they missed in Butler, but it is on now. Never mind that in Butler, Pennsylvania, the would-be assassin who targeted Donald Trump was a registered Republican, or that, as Van Orden spewed accusations against Democrats and journalists, the identity of the shooter who targeted Charlie Kirk was still unknown at the time. And then, of course, it quotes how Van Orden was like, knock it off, you be quiet. Actually, it's Van Orden who needs to knock it off. Seizing on political violence to try to stoke more political violence is as dangerous as it is disgusting. After the horrible double murder of Minnesota State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband, Mark, Van Orden falsely characterized the suspected shooter, a right-wing religious fanatic whose list of intended targets included Democrats and abortion providers, as an anti-Trump protester who decided, quote, decided to murder and attempt to murder some politicians that were not far left enough for them. He seems to revel in the prospect of more violence. And so it goes on like this, but they make a really compelling case that this guy is friggin' nuts. Axios reported on it as well. Congress's civility crisis erupts over Charlie Kirk shooting. Got Derrick Van Orden here, again, looking like, I don't know, my name is Jefferson Beauregard Van Orden. And he's like, he's just, I don't know, he's like a second-tier bad guy in Django Unchained or something. Just insane. Let's see here what it has about him. Yeah, he's at the Capitol on January 6th and has a history of angry outbursts, put it mildly, repeatedly snapped at reporters and accused the mainstream press and Democrats of being responsible in the shooting. And so, yeah, here's the point. We're going to, as we continue to gauge the reaction, again, I've got to say, I'm sorry, the asymmetry is there. Every prominent Democrat, and certainly every elected Democratic leader, has unequivocally condemned the violence. And yet we're seeing a number of high-profile Republicans and elected Republican leaders like Derrick Van Orden actually do the opposite. And again, threatening your own district and a city in particular in your own district, that you're just going to defund the entire thing. You're going to collectively punish the men, women, and children for the words, not actual acts of violence, but the words, no matter how callous, of a single person in that district. That is insane. I have never seen anything like that before from Republicans or Democrats. And he has pioneered a new act of pettiness and partisan cruelty. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.